Hello, everyone. Welcome. Today is the last Monday in December, December 27th, 2021. I am Sally Blue Sister, and this is My Turn to Talk. Hey, crazy lady, how are you? And Anukit, welcome. I hope everyone had a good Christmas. We're going to get started in just a moment here. Hello, Frankie. Welcome, my friend. How are you? All right, so let's get started, and everyone else will drift in. Uh-oh, sorry, didn't mean to do that. There we go. Okay, hello, Crucible Man. Welcome. All right, so today's topic, we are going to talk about human interaction and loneliness. Hi, Frankie. And a whole 12 degrees. So I'm assuming it's 12 degrees where you are. It's in the 50s here in Southern California. A bit chilly, a bit cold. Okay, so why do some people need human interaction and others not so much? Is it okay to be alone? Why do some people have a need to be quote unquote around people? Now, ever since COVID, there's been, talk of, needing human interaction and, people who are by themselves a lot, and how, being on lockdown and even kids out of school, not being able to, play with their classmates or be around their classmates, has had an effect. And I just want to talk about, why do we need to be around people? And again, I go back to, and I've said this before, you have those people who choose to live off the grid or whatever, and they go live in the mountains all by themselves or wherever, or they just choose to go into their apartment or their home, and they just choose to shut the door and they just don't interact with people. Some people literally never see people for a very long time. You have people who are afraid to go out, who can always get the nerve, but then as soon as they open up that front door, they have that fear and they're not able to go out. Is that the same, as human interaction or, being lonely, and is there a difference from being alone and being lonely? I mean, because there are a lot of times when I just want to be alone. I don't want to be bothered. I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want anybody around me. I don't want to, I don't want my son to talk to me. I don't want my husband to talk to me. I don't want friends, whatever. I just want to be alone. So is there a difference between being alone and being lonely? And then again, it comes back to that human interaction. Human interaction, they say it promotes personal, physical, emotional and mental well-being. Is that true? There are some people who are constantly around people and they're very lonely. So, having said that, I am going to open it up. Does anyone want to take the mic? If you do not, I totally understand. Crucible Man, hello.
Hello. Yes, I think there's definitely a difference between being alone and being lonely. I don't want to dwell too much on my personal life, but I've lived alone my whole life. I've always, not always, but up until recently, had relationships, so I was not quote unquote completely alone. Very close to my family, But in terms of a day in and day out existence, I spend 90% of my time alone. Um, Up until maybe the last few years or so, I would never have ever characterized myself as lonely ever. If anybody would have said you'll be lonely someday, I would have said you're crazy. I'm self-sufficient. Do I need other people? Absolutely, I need other people. But I can be alone without being lonely. Um, Over the past few years, as I've gotten a little bit older, and I'm not using that as an excuse, but things do shrink a bit. They don't come as easy to us, or me, I guess I should say, socially. So you either have to accept those circumstances or work a little bit harder to to find that connection that we are all looking for. I mean, we're social beings. You just hit the nail on the head. We get mental, physical, emotional, all kinds of different well-being from being around other people. Some people need large dosages of other people. Some people need smaller dosages of other people. It kind of depends what else is going on in your life at the time. But there is a definite, and somebody who can speak to it, there is a definite difference between being alone and being lonely. And sometimes you can feel like you're lonely, and you have to maybe work through it in your mind to say, these are temporary circumstances. You're not quote unquote lonely. You're feeling a little isolated right now, but these things have remedies, and they're at your disposal should things get to the point where you need human interaction. But I could go on and on, but the loneliness versus alone thing is always been an interesting discussion for me.
Okay, so Crucible Man, let me ask this. So, you said that if someone had said, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure that I get this right. You said if someone said that you were going to be alone or you were going to be lonely. What was it?
They said I was going to be lonely. And particularly because I didn't get married, and really because I didn't have kids. I mean, people get divorced all the time, but they still have their children and their grandchildren. And it was clear from 25 years ago that I was probably going to have neither. So they were doing a bit of foreshadowing. And I'm not saying that they're wrong. People assume that when people are alone, that they're lonely. And, in my 20s and in my 30s, I was alone a fair amount of the time, but I never considered myself lonely. Now that I've gotten into my early 60s, I still spend a lot of time alone. And now I would characterize much of my time as closer to lonely than just being alone.
Oh, okay. So, can I ask, was this a friend or a family member who made that comment to you?
I think it was a friend. It might even have been an ex-girlfriend. Most of my relationships have ended because of the lack of commitment on my part, and so the natural conclusion, and whether it was just um, a mean-spirited, dig at me, or it was a genuine concern for my welfare, later in life. Um, it was a friend. My mother told me at one point before she passed away, she said, you will never be alone unless you choose to be alone. So in other words, you have options. You're a sociable guy. You're good around people. So if you're alone, it was your decision. So she was giving me control over the situation by saying, if you find yourself in that situation, it was your doing, it was your free choice. And if you choose to change it, you will have those options. So my family would never have said that. This would have come from a friend, or like I said, maybe an ex-girlfriend, just kind of giving me a heads up. You want all this alone time, you better be careful what you wish for.
All right. So, first, welcome Tron Cat, GP Man, and Juju. Welcome to the conversation. All right, because I didn't get married until I was 35, and for some people, that's old. Okay. At some point, I had no interest in getting married, did not want to have kids. I knew what I wanted to do with my life, and I've always been pretty much independent, and I still am. Um, However, I do believe that when you make choices, how do I want to say this? I think when you make choices, if you make a choice not to get married, or you make a choice to be alone in that sense, um, are you thinking about the future? Are you thinking about that? If you choose not to get married, you can choose to be in a relationship and still have kids, whatever. Or if you choose not to have children, um, how is that going to play out for you in the future? Now, people have asked me, since I only have one son, I have an only child. They asked me, do you ever wonder about how, your son, when he gets older, who is he going to have? And that is something that I think about, where other people may have their siblings, whatever. My son won't, but he is close to his cousins. He's very close to them. So he has them. But as a single person, do you think about, and Crucible Man, I'm asking you this, when you make the conscious choice not to get married, not to have children, were you thinking 25, 30 years down the road where you're, 80 years old and you don't have the grandkids, or in some cases, the great grandkids, you don't have your children. Um, did you think about that?
I did think about it, and the decision, and now that I'm remembering it, those words about being alone, came from more than one source. These were multiple people, and I just think they thought, you are somebody who would be a good candidate to get married and have kids. If you don't want to do it, why, who else would want to do it? And I remember thinking, I was probably 30, in the prime age where most people get married and start to have family, that although in the back of my mind, I had an idea that there might be some truth to what these people were saying, but I thought, and this is where I give people who have children and get married a real tip of the hat, because they saw long term what I either didn't see or chose to ignore. And what I mean by that is, I didn't want to go through the next 30 years of a lot of children type things. I didn't think I was suited for it. I didn't think I had the right temperament. I didn't think I was patient enough. I didn't think I could get into it sufficiently, like you need to, for the next 25 years until they were adults and out of college. That was a long time to spend doing something that I didn't think I would like, or be particularly good at. And so I made a calculation that said, I'm going to roll the dice, and I prefer to spend my next 25 years doing these things, as opposed to raising children. And it was a bit of a short-sighted decision, and it wasn't like I was not aware of the possible ramifications down the road, but it was a conscious decision to say, for the luxury, and I don't, maybe that's not the right word, but for the privilege or the comfort of having children in my older years, is it worth sacrificing? And that's the word I used, sacrificing the next 20, 25 years of your life for something that may or may not materialize. I mean, you don't know that you wouldn't have a falling out with your kids. I know many, many people who have no relationship with their children through all kinds of different circumstances. So that's certainly no guarantee that things are going to turn out. Things happen all the time in families. So I made a calculated and conscious decision that the next 20 years, I prefer to do these things instead of these things. And I'm finding out, sometimes for the better and sometimes not, that a lot of what those people were saying was very prescient. And a lot of it, is reality. But I made a conscious decision, and I chose to go a different path, knowing that there may be some regrets later on.
Okay. I mean, that's fair. And welcome, Feisty One. And Feisty One says, Crucible Man, that's fair. You made a decision that you felt was best for you. And Frankie says, I think choices you make at a young age will affect your older self. And that's, true, with a lot of things. And you guys gonna have to bear with me with my voice. I'm just getting my voice back. Okay, so, you know, again, I didn't get married until I was 35. And like I said, I never wanted to get married. I never wanted to have kids. However, when and Juju says one is not a lonely number, and I don't think one is a lonely number. Uh Getting married for me was a decision. I mean, I knew my husband at some point was going to ask me. We hadn't really talked about it, but I knew he was going to ask me. And I was like, do I want to get married? Do I not want to get married? And then when my son came along when I was 37, um, you know, it's like, okay, I'm this independent person. I was brought up with a by a very independent mother. Um, independent. I mean, my household, we have four people in the household. Everybody had their independence, and I'm like, okay, now I have this child to take care of. But I always made a conscious decision that I was always going to make time for me. And some people may see that as being selfish, but when I look back on it now, I think what I did was fine because I see some women, and I'm going to say mostly women, because women are usually the ones who are, and I'm going to use this word, tied down with taking care of their family. And I have friends that never get a chance or never had the opportunity to do things because they were always taking care of their family. They never put themselves first. So, Crucible Man, I understand where you're coming from because I was at a point at that place too. But then if you do make the choice to have a family, that's where, when we were talking about in one of the earlier shows, you have to make time for yourself. Hey, Saba, what's up? So, um, I don't think it's wrong to want to, again, make a conscious choice to be by yourself. I don't think it's wrong to make a conscious choice, a conscious choice at times to be selfish. I think we all should do that. But like Frankie says, choices you make at a young age will affect your older self. So I don't want this conversation just to be between Crucible Man and myself. If anyone else wants to jump in, you're more than welcome. I'll send some more invites out. If you guys want to jump on, feel free. If not, I understand. The only thing I ask is we not talk over each other. So other than that, you know, does anybody want to say anything? Feisty one, you have the mic.
Hey guys. So, with respect to Crucible Man, honestly, I get what he's saying. He made a decision. Now, the only piece I didn't necessarily hear is that sometimes the decisions we make at one age may not, you're an older self. So what you decide at 27, 37, 30, whatever, may be a different decision than what you decide at 40 or 50, right? So, I don't necessarily begrudge decisions people make because what I hope they do is they make the decisions based on what they know, how they are, how they expect that they would engage with children, right? So if I grew up with somebody who said they never wanted children. And she, in fact, never had kids. And frankly, as I look at her life, that was probably the best decision for her. Like she was, how you can, and follow me on this, and I'm saying it loosely, how you can say people aren't children people? She was not a kid person. She had no time for kids, no time for younger siblings, although she had younger siblings. And so I can respect when people make that decision. I do wonder whether they second guess that decision later in life. But, I think you make those decisions based on the information that you have and you live with it and you move forward. I don't know that it's a wrong decision or a right decision. It's just your decision.
And Feisty One, you make a really, good point, because there are people who are not, child people. I mean, I can honestly say now, I am not a child person. I would prefer, if you had small kids, that you do not bring them over my house. I've gotten to the point where, I've raised my son, he's 21. I'm a very particular person. And some people say that that's rude, but I'm telling you in advance, that's what I prefer. But some people aren't child people. So now I come back to, um, you're in this state now, and let's not even, let's say that you're not even, if you take away the whole marriage part, and Crucible Man made the conscious choice not to get married. So my question is, what if you are married? What if you have a house full of kids, or you're living with extended family? When I mean extended family, I mean, your mother and father living with you, or your aunt and uncle, whatever. Can you still be lonely? Can you still be lonely around
Wait, but can I
all these
ask you
people?
something? Are you saying that you have to be married in order to have kids?
No, 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 no. I mean, well, we know that's not possible. No,
Well,
no.
are you saying that's the ideal scenario, that you should be married to have kids?
No, I was just saying that I was picking up from what you were saying, and then and what Crucible Man was saying, that he made a conscious choice not to get married and not to have children. I'm saying, now let's take that scenario out, and let's just say that you are married, you do have children, you are living in this house full of people. Can you still be lonely? That's what I'm saying.
Got it.
So
My answer is, I bet you can still be lonely. Like, I think loneliness is sort of a state of mind, right? So loneliness doesn't necessarily mean that you have a plethora of people around you. Loneliness, I think, is a state of mind. So you very well could be incredibly lonely. I think so that you understand what I mean, have you ever saw somebody who is incredibly wealthy, but they're miserable as fuck?
yep.
Like, and so you think, what do you have to be miserable about? You have anything that money can buy. But so I think it's sort of a similar thing, right? You can have a ton of people around you and you think that's going to make you happy. But you still end up being just lonely and unhappy.
Okay. Sava?
I think it's kind of selfish to have kids for a lot of people. Sorry, I'm at work, so I'm going to mute myself a lot,
Okay. All right.
but I'll answer questions.
All right. So, can you jump on Sava real quick and say why you made that comment?
Well, given the world the way it is right now, and has been for a while, I think a lot of people are turning a cheek and just, fulfilling their maternal or paternal urges, and not really thinking through it thoroughly, and thinking about the actual child that's going to have to, bear the burden of life here on earth the way.
So, Sava, can I ask you, do you have children?
No, I don't.
Okay. All right. Now, Feisty, when I want to go to you, because I know you. We grew up together. You, including yourself, there were not 9 of you. Is that correct?
8.
8. Okay. Okay. I was one off. All right. So, you being the youngest, did you ever feel lonely?
No, not like that. Because I think when you grow up with a really large family, there's always somebody to do something with. The dynamics of my family was a bit different, though, because you had the older set and the younger set. And so for some of you who are older, you may understand this term. You had to mind the older people, the older siblings. So they were old enough. The difference between me and my oldest brother, I was a kid. And my oldest brother was in his, well, my mother was pregnant with me when my oldest brother was in his 20s. And so he, in fact, named me. So there was a difference in age there. And so I think the dynamics of the family was different. But in terms of loneliness, no, because what happened in my family is I had nieces and nephews that were my age and within my generation. There were more like siblings. I didn't feel loneliness like that. In addition to, Solid Blue Sister, you were my friend. I had friends growing up like every other kid, but I also had a ton of family, because my family was so large. So I didn't feel lonely like that. There was always somebody wanting to do something.
But you can still be around a lot of people, or around a lot of friends and a lot of family, and still be lonely. I mean, I'm not saying that you were, but
No.
would you agree that you can still be around a lot of people and still be lonely?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's kind of like the wealthy example I gave. You can be freaking rich and miserable, right? I think that you can have a ton of people around you and still be unhappy or just not fulfilled in some way. That happened not to be my scenario. So I can't necessarily speak from that perspective.
All right, so I'm gonna throw this question out because sometimes, I mean, even now, like, my son, he's home from school. I'm really happy he's home, and he even said, Mom, I'm happy I'm home. That I'm spending time with you and Daddy, whatever, and which made my heart go flutter, flutter. But people have asked me, do you ever worry? Like, do you ever look at him and wonder if he's lonely? And sometimes I do. Sometimes I'll look at him and he's sitting there drawing whatever, and he's by himself, and I do wonder about this. And one friend went as far as telling me that I was selfish only to have one child. So, what do you guys think on that? I mean, do you think that if you have one child, that you're setting your child up as they get older to be lonely? That they'll be, 80, 90 years old, and they'll be by themselves. But if they're 80, 90 years old, more than likely, if they do have siblings, a lot of the siblings would have passed away. So, what do you guys think? Anybody? Crucible Man?
Yeah, I know a number of people, not a lot, but I know a handful or more, couples, parents that have only had one child, and they have consistently expressed that same concern. But loneliness, you had mentioned that your son is close with his cousins, and maybe he will be the type that develops and keeps friendships. Everybody is different when it comes to developing and maintaining them. Maybe knowing he has no siblings will change his outlook and approach towards making friends and keeping friends, knowing that there is no family unit per se to fall back on. But yeah, that would be a concern. But you make a valid point. If you're going to live into quote unquote old age, which is at least into your 70s or 80s, there's a decent chance that your siblings will be gone. My mother came from a family of 4, and she passed away at age 70. Her brother passed away at age 68, and her sister unfortunately committed suicide when she was 57. So my uncle, who ended up passing away a couple summers ago at age 94, he spent a good 16 years of his life at the end by himself. His wife had passed away, and his siblings had been gone for a long time. He did not do a good job of developing and maintaining friendships. He came from a different era, and I think he was caught off guard. And I remember sitting next to him at a wedding we had about 6 years ago for my niece, and I asked him, I said, do you ever regret not having children? And he couldn't get the words out fast enough. He said, yes, I do regret it. So, you're right. Siblings can pass away at early ages, and you can wind up by yourself. But I've always been fascinated by the decision that parents make to only have one child. I know there are medical reasons a lot of times you can't have more than one. You just don't want more than one. So are you being selfish by thinking short term instead of longer term? Because it kind of goes back to what I said earlier. You're going to sacrifice the next 20 years of your life, and it is a sacrifice, to raise another child for the sole purpose that your current child will not be alone later in life. Is that a good use of the next 20 years? Or are you just going to count on your only child to navigate the world with your guidance? And when the time comes for you to be gone, you've equipped them enough with life skills that they realize I am going to be on my own, and I need to see the world differently because I'm not going to have that built-in friendship unit that are called siblings.
Okay, you make a good point. And Sala, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I think when we decide to have a child, he or she should be a better version of us. I agree. In fact, he or she should inherit our good moods and comprehension of life. This is to making the world a better place to live. I would agree with that. And I'm going to go to Saba. If you can take the mic if you're able. What do you think of what Sala said?
Uh, well, I mean, one thing that I hear parents say a lot is they want to give their child more than they had. They want to give them a better life. They hope that they do something to change the world, but those are all great ideas, but in reality, everybody is their own person. Whatever plans you have for that child, it most likely will not come true unless you force them to do that. And the way society is being ran right now, we really don't have much power as a parent over our children, unless we want to homeschool them and do all that. But I mean, society is also set up in such a way, the system is set up where people have to go to work, and families are rarely, sticking together, it seems. And so unless, we all, come to terms with this and start taking the steps to change everything, I think it's selfish to have a kid just because you want a kid and you want to fulfill all these dreams and everything. Because if you take a step back and look and calculate everything, that very well might not happen for you. You could have a child, yes, but you're not going to be able to do what you want to do with that child.
Okay, Saba makes a very good point. Does anyone want to pick up on that? I'm gonna go to Feisty One.
Um, so yeah, I don't know that. I think that I have so many thoughts about so many different things. I don't know that you have children. Having children and loneliness should be just very isolated things because, as I think about the other shows that you've had and we talk about children or family in general, a lot of conversation in your past shows talked about people saying, the kid is 18 now, get out and go make a living and live your life, right? I mean, you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, go live your life. And now all of a sudden we're saying the children are supposed to be meet our emotional needs so we're not lonely. Like, I don't know that's, I totally agree with having children and you always want them to be in a better position than you were in or to have a great life that, or at least from my perspective, that's what I want I have 2 kids and I want them to have a great life. I want them to be happy. I want them to be financially healthy. I want all of those things for them, but I can't put my loneliness on them. Do I love spending time with my kids? Absolutely. But I can't sync my happiness or loneliness or whatever. That's unfair to them. This is my opinion, of course, right? I just think that's unfair to them. I think you have kids and you raise them and you hope that they go be productive human beings and be happy in whatever their happiness is for them. But my loneliness should not be their goal. Now whether they decide, oh, my mom is lonely and let me make her happy, okay. But I'm just saying, I didn't have kids to ensure that I'm not lonely. Like, I had kids because I love kids. Like, I want grandkids someday. And that may stem from coming from a big family. I like having people around. I'm one of these goofy people that believe that if you're able, have a big ass house so people can live in their own wing of the house and you can be around them, but not necessarily to fill my void, if that makes sense.
No, I totally get it. And I definitely did not have my one, to fulfill, being lonely when when I'm old and gray or, whatever. And I do know that, some people do count on their children, to fulfill that need for them. 100 years ago, you had children because they had to work the farm or whatever. People had big families in order to do that. And I do believe that it is selfish to want your child around, to be
Yeah,
your caretaker.
yeah.
Now, in some what do you call it? Thank you, Frankie, and thank you, Crucible Man, for the pod beans. There are some cultures like the Asians where when a child gets married, a mother or father moves into their home and you take care of them because that's out of respect. They took care of you. Now you take care of them,
So I'm
you know, and
yeah,
I don't have anything, there's nothing wrong with that.
I
But,
agree.
and I also know that there are some parents who, um, especially if it's the younger child, everyone else has gotten married and they don't want that younger child to leave because, well, what about me? I'll be here all by myself. That's not fair.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. The next thing you know, mom lives for another 20 years and then you're 90 and you can't get married. So um uh but I still kind of want to go back to this whole, the human interaction and loneliness. And again, I say coming off of COVID and what have you, why do some people have a need to be around people? Do you think everyone automatically has that need? Or do you think that there are some people that just have a need where they constantly have to have that human interaction, even if it's with the mailman? Or you hear about people who call 911 just so someone can show up because they're lonely. Why do you think? Okay, Saba says it's a personality type. Um, this is true. But why are some people like that? I mean, is it something that happened when they were younger? Um, you know, uh, uh, were you know, were, did, were they in a relationship where someone left them? I mean, why do you think people are like that?
I
Anybody?
don't I don't think it's deep. I don't think it's as deep rooted as that. I think as you get older, your group of people, whether they're friends or family, they begin to die off. So that group, you may start off with it's even true for me, coming from a large family. As the family begins to shrink, the numbers are getting smaller, right? I don't know that it's as nefarious as, like, you know, you got to fulfill my loneliness void. I just think it's life, right? I think
No,
people
but
begin to die
again,
off.
if I see one, I'm talking about human interaction. And don't say as you get older, like Saba says, it's a personality type. I mean, there are people who are in high school who have that need to be around people.
So, yes, there are people
So,
who are more social than other people. That's true. Um,
but is it a social thing? Is it, oh, well, she's just more social than she is? Or is it the fact that these people, again, just have this need to be around people? You want to think about that one? Because I want to ask Saba.
I think you have introverts and extroverts, right? And some people, I'm perfectly content reading a book and drinking a glass of wine, but I also enjoy conversation. So, are there people who have to always be around people. I think, yeah, that's true. There are people. Why? I don't know, though. I'm not sure. I know the answer to that.
All right, Sava, I'm gonna come to you. When you say it's a personality type, what type of personality are you talking about? Are you talking an introvert or extrovert
Well, the
or
thing
what do you?
about introverts and extroverts is extroverts can get fuel and energy by interacting with others, whereas it could drain an introvert. But it all depends on the dynamic, really. Like, I do better in small intervals in person, and I can have longer intervals during podcasts. And I like when I'm around someone for, let's say, a day. Like, a day is the maximum I can hang out with a person. After that, I'm getting grouchy because I need to go be alone. And quarantine for me was great. I just I didn't feel guilty not for leaving the house, and I just stayed in all day and edited videos and did my thing, and I had a great time. And but
Okay,
extroverts like my mother's constantly trying to get me to come over. It's like, Mom, why do I have to be there? Why do I have to come over? She just needs me there, and it's like, ugh, it's like really frustrating for me. But I kind of feel sorry for extroverts sometimes because when they are alone, they really suffer.
okay, all right, all right. Crucible Man, what do you have to say?
Yeah, Sava kind of stole my thunder, but I was going to say the same thing. There are people who, excuse me, draw energy from being around other people, and there are people who have it drained from them. And I spent quite a bit of time with my family over this past weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, particularly Christmas Day, and we might have had 20 people or so, and there were several young children, and the decibel level was equivalent to a 747 taking off, and we were together for a good solid 6 hours. And then when I spent the night with one of my sisters, a couple nights with her husband, and by the time I left on I guess it was yesterday, I had I shouldn't say my fill. That sounds negative. I was satiated with social behavior, with interaction, with conversation, and everything. And by the third day, kind of like what Sava said, I was sort of ready to be spending a little bit of time alone. Not a lot of it, but my mother used to joke when she was alive about Christmas. She said, it's all sound and fury for a day or two, and then nothing. So we spend all this time building up to it, and then it only goes, and it would be nice if it were spread over a longer period of time, because I like being around my family. I really do. They're great people. We're friends. But after a couple of days of very intense social interaction, and they are a very intense group, I can start to get a little bit fatigued. It doesn't last very long, maybe a day or two, and I'm ready to go again. But yeah, I think some people, and maybe some people are just insecure. They feel like if they're alone, there's something wrong with them. They don't like their own company. They're left to their own devices. They don't have hobbies. They don't read. And so they need to be entertained. They're not as self-sufficient or self-contained as other people. So I think that's probably the introvert and extrovert conversation.
Okay, Crazy Lady, what do you have to say, my friend? Are you there?
Unmute. Okay, yeah. Can you
Okay,
hear me?
there you
All
go.
right.
Yes.
Yeah, like Chris man, he made it 6 hours, man. Dude, you made it longer than we did. And the most time when I was with the family, I was like on the fringes going, okay. And I went out to the car like quite a bit to smoke just so I could like have peace and quiet. Um, Even when like I'm alone, I'm not alone. I'm self-entertaining, you know? So it's like, okay, good example, like the concerts. When during the concert season, we have campers out here, like 46,000 people are out pretty much in my front yard camping. I can walk the dog through them and I'm fine. And if I don't, and actually, if I don't want to talk to anybody, I just put my headphones on, my big headphones, so everyone can see I have the headphones on and I'm not paying attention. Uh, but I can only handle like doses of people and then I'm done. It's like, okay, that's enough people time. And I run away. But I know people that cannot be alone. My friend Troy, that boy cannot be alone to save his life, not even an hour. He's calling someone on the phone, hey, come over, come visit, blah, blah, blah.
I know people like that, and those people, they drive me crazy, because I'm also a type of person where, okay, I'm around people, and after a period of time, it's time for you guys to go home. You know, or I'm going to leave. And a lot of times, if I go someplace, especially if I know I'm going to be around a lot of people that I know, I prefer to drive my own car, because that way I'm not relying on someone else or having to wait for someone else to leave. I can just leave. So yeah, but people who to me have that need to consistently be around people, those people, they get on my nerve. And Feisty one says, is it true the more you are alone, the more you want to be alone? One of my sisters is that way. She enjoys coming together for brief periods of time. My sister becomes overstimulated. And my son is like that. When he's around a lot of people, it's like it drives him crazy. King Ziller, did you want to join in the conversation?
Yes. Yes.
How are you? So,
By the way, I am doing great, and a great topic, by the way. I have
thank you.
I don't like to talk about this, but I have seizures like crazy lady. Um so, and hey, Crucible. But loneliness has have been through my whole entire life. Because bulliness and all kinds of situations throughout that, around the circle of that. But my family doesn't call me, I call them. But my wife has put me through. It's just me and my wife, usually. But when she's not around, this is why I'm. If you guys notice, I'm always on Podbeam, and that's the reason why, because I interact. You guys are my family. The only that, and besides when I'm not on Podbeam, the only thing I'm doing is drinking Dr Pepper and watching television. So great topic, Solid Blue. I props to you 100%, and great job. Um, I'll tell you, spot on. I would have never thought of this topic, to tell you the truth, but that really, um, you nailed it. I would have never thought about it. Great job.
Thank
But
you. Now, King Zilla, you bring up an interesting comment, and I first want to read what Sala says. In my opinion, loneliness is very bad. I was an engineer in a TV station, and I used to work in shifts of 3 days on and 3 days off. I was alone there. When I was returning to our home, I had an extreme willing willingness to talk. That's interesting. And then Crazy Lady said, my daughter said, if your daily life didn't change during lockdown, you may be antisocial. All right, so King Zilla, I have a question for you. So you said that the podcast family, or Podbean, or I mean, I know there's a lot of other platforms out there that they are your family. Do you think that that's kind of, I don't want to, I guess for lack of a better word, do you think that's kind of dangerous that you're saying that your family are people that you really don't know?
Well, let me just tell you this. My dad hits me, punches me. My they don't support me one bit unless it's Christmas. My dad takes me to the grocery store. We don't talk. The divorce has a little bit into that, but Solid Blue, we would have to talk like personally, one on one, to get more in depth about it. But the situation is that it's become, yeah, it's yeah. But the situation, to sum it up, I have become, I have a lot of anger issues because of my mess. I'm 30 years old. Um, but I have become a lot better because, and I used to throw chairs everywhere when I was around people, and it was because my medication was unbalanced. And when I'm talking to people, I've now understand a lot more. and my family doesn't have harassed me, and a lot of you guys understand me more than anybody else because I can talk to you guys and you guys don't judge me. My family judges people and they don't even know the people. And so I just listen to you guys, and that's what I like about Podbean, some you got do you understand what I'm saying?
No. I mean, I totally get it. That's why I asked. I know that, some people, they turn to social media because for whatever reason they can't talk to their family or they can't talk to their friends. And since you brought that up, I just wanted to touch on that. So, okay, all
and
right. So,
and I also got banned from literally my from Christmas going to my grandparents because my because me and my dad don't get along, so I had to stay with me and my wife in the house. I wasn't allowed to go because they didn't like my wife and my wife. So I had to stay by myself. Me and my wife did our Christmas by ourselves. So yeah, my family is a little whack, as you would say.
well, but you know what? You're not
They're judgmental.
alone in that because you have a lot of people whose families, everybody's family does not get along, so or I'm sorry, or do not get along, so um I totally get that. So I would like to ask, from what King Ziller said, does anyone want to pick up on any of that? Sava, you want to comment, or you want me to keep passing the mic?
Um, well, you know, some the people who are closest to me right now, it seems they're on Podbean, and I'm not ashamed of that. And it's just my personality type, because I like to have intellectual conversations. I'm able to have that on Podbean. In person, there's a lot of obstacles that hinder that interaction that I need or that I want. And so, it is what it is, and I'm glad we have it. It just really sucks that, the internet is being used as a weapon against humanity right now with all the censorship and all the craziness that's going on. But I think that Podbean is so special because it's a gem. It has yet to be tapped into by a whole lot of people, and yet we're able to all come together like-minded and even have our differences, but we still come together nonetheless, and we're getting to know each other, and we're learning, and we're practicing socializing and all that, and I think it's a really special thing.
Did I lose sound or is nobody talking?
I know, I was like,
Oh,
is there?
okay.
That's
I was like, oh my God, I'm by myself again. No.
What happened, Solid Blue?
Did the show end? No. I went to go get my medicine.
Solid Blues is just having technical difficulties at the time.
definitely can.
Crazy lady, can you tell Solid Blue that I'll mute?
Okay, sorry.
No, we got her.
Okay, sorry, and I'm up here talking. All right, so Miriam and DMAC, you guys are trying to get on. Not sure why you're not able to get on there. So I'm sorry there. All right. So does anyone want to comment on what Saba just said or what King Ziller said? Crazy Lady or Feisty One? You guys want to comment? Can you hear me? All right. So, Feisty One, did you want to comment on what Sava and King Ziller said?
I don't really have a comment.
Okay, not a problem. I will keep passing the mic. Crazy lady, you want to comment?
Hold on.
Let's see.
I had something go down the wrong windpipe. I mean, I totally like Podbean has been like a lifesaver for me because during COVID, everyone's locked down, you couldn't go anywhere, and it was during a time when I actually needed human interaction, so I didn't go into like a deep dark place that I don't even like to go, really. So it helped me out, and to keep an even trend on my insanity, because I know sometimes, like if I'm left by myself alone too long, yeah, it's never pretty.
So let me ask you guys, how many people, and I'm going to use this word seriously, how many people were seriously affected by COVID, by the lockdown in 2020? Anybody? I mean, how many people were like truly felt just disconnected from people? So, Feisty, when you say me,
Yeah, I think what I mean by that is I like spending time with my family, and um, I listen to these rules and things that we should be doing, and frankly, I did everything I could to follow them, but it made me miserable in the process. It's like holidays I spend with my family. My extended family, not just my kids. And so it was challenging. It was challenging even now as we talked about getting together for Thanksgiving and Christmas. We had something planned for Christmas and we backed out of it. Fear, frankly, drove part of it. Um,
what, fear of getting COVID or?
yeah, just fear of, and it was really more for the older ones, just fear of them, of causing problems or issues for the older ones, right, in the family. And so when you talk about a family that just we are big on impromptu gatherings. You name the reason we get together, like the most goofy reason we'll get together. And when you go from that sort of environment where you get together for any reason to not getting together at all. Yeah, and there's only so much zooming that you can do where it just is not satisfying.
It's interesting that you said that because when the lockdowns happened, it didn't phase me. I can honestly say that. I mean, it's like, for some of you, you know that I am a mask person. Yes, for some of you know that I am a vaccinated person or whatever. But it didn't phase me. My son spent his whole year of college, last year, as most college students did, at home doing the whole virtual thing. It didn't bother him because he was homeschooled from 5th grade to 12th grade, so he was used to it. But lockdowns, it didn't bother me. I mean, I still was able to go out, whatever. But then again, I was never, one who got together with family a lot. My sister, we lived 2,000 miles away. Um, it just didn't bother me. So does anyone else feel the way Feisty One did? Did anyone else, did it really affect you? And Zilla, you're saying yes. So you have the mic.
Okay, like Feisty said, well, first of all, my grandpa has a couple months. I don't know how long he's going to last, living wise, and also my mom has now come down with lupus and scleroderma, which killed my grandma. So she has lost literally 120 pounds in under 2 months, and so and she's been into the hospital every day since June. And I live 4 hours away from her. I live from where I used to live, so that's crazy. So that's been one thing, and also what Feisty said about just the mystery of it. So one of the things about that, but the idea that eventually Solid Blue, like the COVID thing, not so much. Just the idea that since I can't drive, it's just the idea that I can't get towards my mom because she's 4 hours away, and I people have to drive me places like to everywhere I have to go. So the situation with my mom really hit hard. That I heard that news, and Grandpa also had a heart attack, and he was in the hospital with the situation with COVID and blah blah blah. But that was the only situation, and still my mom is going through the process of the scleroderma, and they're still examining that situation. So that's my take on it, and I can see where that's why I wanted to go after Feisty, and I like how, and yes, this is a good show. And Sod once again, great. I love the topic. I would have never thought about it. Once again, great job. No, I mean,
Thank you.
seriously, I when it comes to a great topic, I like to say it. By the way, can I mute myself because I have epilepsy, and it
Sure.
I have seizures. I'll mute
Okay.
myself, and
All right.
just tell me next time. I'll do it.
All right. Okay. Not a problem. Crucible Man, let's see what's going on with you. You're able to get on if you want to come on. So I'm not seeing you though. So not sure. Okay. Are you there?
Hello?
You are on. I thought you dropped off. So some people are trying to get on, they're not able to get on. So
I'm channeling my inner bro. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah,
All right.
I think what happened with COVID, I mean, it depends on what else was going on in your life at the time. I was not affected by it immediately, but I was eventually as it kind of dragged on. But I wanted to talk a little bit about what Ziller and Sava said about the Podbean family, and maybe as it relates to dysfunction or discord in your family or among other friends. You know, we can be alone in the world, but where loneliness comes from, I think, is when we don't feel heard, we don't feel cared for. We don't feel understood. Nobody's tapping into our inner fears or our inner anxieties or things. I mean, we have these superficial conversations with our friends or our families because they don't want to get into the depths of what we're going through or anything. So you can be alone, but if you're connecting with people on a level that makes you feel cared for or relevant or valid, that's what people are looking for. You can take the alone time if you're making a connection. So I understand exactly where Ziller and Sava were coming from with regard to the Podbean family. I've only been listening to podcasts for about 4 months now, and they have been a godsend to me. Not all of them, but some of them. And I have begun to think of some of the people that I interact with on a regular basis here and elsewhere as maybe not family, but friends in some regard, because we can relate to each other. We're tuning into a show because we like the host, we like the topic, we want to share our thoughts with people that we've come to know a little bit. So I completely get the Podbean family dynamic, because sometimes people who aren't related to you or don't know you that well will understand you and relate to you better than people that have known you for 35 or 40 years. So I think it matters where the connection comes from, as long as you make one, and the connection will come from like-minded people as opposed to people you just happen to share bloodlines with.
Okay. All right. You've made a good point. And Frankie, thank you for the super chat. And she says, y'all get deep every single show. Yes, they do. Oh boy. So it's interesting what you said, Crucible Man, in terms of people, that you've known. And Feisty One, we've grown up together. So I've known Feisty One for over 50 years. Crucible Man, you and I, we know each other. I've known you for over 30 years, um, but do you think that if COVID had not have happened, and you still had Podbean, you still had Spotify and Twitter and Facebook and Insta and all these other, platforms, do you think the relationships that you formed on Podbean or any other podcasts would still be the same if COVID had not have happened? And Crucible Man, I'll let you answer first, and then I'll go around the room.
No, that's a very wise point on your part, Solid Blue. I don't believe they would have happened at all. When we are in times of crisis and we feel like the walls, either literally or figuratively, are closing in on us, we reach out because we're trying to form bonds. We're trying to get connections. And when the pandemic hit and all the lockdowns started and the isolation took place, it was more of a figurative isolation as opposed to an actual physical isolation, which it was. So I think when we're under duress or when we're in a crisis, we place a greater emphasis on our relationships because we're looking for support, we're looking for comfort, we're looking for an ear so people can understand what we're going through. And I think that COVID situation really exacerbated people's feelings of loneliness or isolation, and they placed more value on the friendships they were forming during COVID because of the time those friendships were being formed. It had a very much of a, we're all in this together and we will get through this together. And when you're forming relationships in that environment, they're going to look and feel and behave differently than relationships that might have been formed during more benign or normal times.
Okay. All right. You guys are keeping this conversation going. I didn't think this show was going to last more than an hour. I didn't know how long my voice was going to last. So we will keep going because you guys are making some really, really good points. And once again, if it weren't for you guys, I would not have a good show. So thank you. Crazy Lady, what did you have to say?
Well, I had a whole thought thing, and then Crucible Man made me rethink things. So I pass.
Okay. All right, Ziller.
Okay, Crucible has a great point, but let me go into my show. My show, I started with a pencil, and yes, Crucible is right. We came together, like he said, but yes, the rate the show has gone is correct. What he said tremendously, but it would have gone slower. That's a fact. But my show is based about just talking and getting together like we are right now, having just a great conversation. But because like I said, I don't like going into this. I am handicapped, and I just do shows all day. I can do shows all day long, and if people like it, they don't. But I said at the beginning on my first show, I'm handicapped. I'm going to do this as long as I want, and I don't care if anybody follows me. I will talk to a pencil on the live show. It's your decision. I can't make you follow my show, but it's up to you too if you like it or not. I'm going to do what I like to do, and if you like it, if you don't, that's fine. But the rate, he's dead on that part. Yes. Um, the COVID has tremendously jacked up the ratings on here. And yes, I totally agree with Crucible on that. But that's what I agree on. My show would just go at a slower rate. That's the only thing different with the COVID. I get, if you understand. That's all I have to say.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to ask you guys this. Um, do you think if the way you guys are saying how you guys love Podbean and your Podbean family, would it be different if you were sitting? Thank you, Feisty, for the coffee. Um, for the coffee Podbean. Do you think it would be different if Podbean were a round table where you can actually look at the person, when you can actually see the person? Do you think that you would want to engage more? You know, sort of like a Zoom thing. I mean, we're not all next to each other physically, but um, would it be different for you in how you relate to Podbean if we were all on video? Would that make a difference? Anybody? Saba, I'm gonna come to you.
I think people podcast for a reason. I make music videos and stuff like that, but I don't necessarily enjoy being on camera, like live. You know, I just because I don't know what it is. I feel like I pay attention too much to myself, and I'm distracting to myself. So I really just want to socialize with other people, and maybe I'm a bit um, I don't know. I'm not vain, but just distractible, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. All right. No, I mean, I'm asking the question. You're giving me an honest answer.
And as far as like if COVID never happened, so I was dabbling with podcasts before COVID, so it was only a matter of time before I found Podbean. That's what I think, anyways. And I'm a super duper introvert, so I did have plans to go out and make friends, but yeah, I know myself too well. I would have ended up back in my room, doing my thing anyway.
Okay. All right. Feisty, what do you think?
I think that COVID sort of created an environment where people are stepping out there. I think having, if you have folks on screen, I think it can be more personal, but it has to be the right personalities, right? So if you have somebody who's an introvert, they may not feel comfortable with that. But if you have people who are not necessarily extroverts, but yes, including extroverts, I think it could be far more engaging. You read people's expressions as they talk, or they tell a story, or they give an example. So I think it could be pretty engaging, but that's just my opinion.
Okay. All right. Crucible Man.
Yeah, could you repeat the question, Solid?
You always do this. You always do this to me. Would it be different if Podbean were video as opposed to?
Yeah. I sometimes I started to type in the chat box and I accidentally hit send too soon. Yeah, I agree with what Feisty says. It would be more personal. It's always a different experience, I think, when you're speaking to somebody face to face than if it's over the phone or where you can't see the other person. And sometimes there's a level of accountability that goes up when you're face to face, as opposed to the anonymity that can sometimes shape how people talk or what they say if they can't be seen. And I know, just for me, a lot of times when you don't know what somebody looks like and you don't really know them that well, and you know them only through this platform, there's a little bit of mystery and intrigue that kind of lets your imagination say, well, I think so-and-so must look like this, or I think so-and-so maybe lives in this particular part of the country or something. And so you start kind of filling in the blanks on your own because you don't know what the person looks like, and you're probably never going to. So I think that the whole conversational dynamic does change when you're face to face, as opposed to having the anonymity. And even though we all have screen names and we know each other by those names, there is still a high degree of anonymity that comes with the Podbean platform, that were we to be in the same room together, I think the personality dynamics would definitely change the conversation. Maybe not in a material way, but I think anytime you're face to face, there's a different dynamic that goes on when you're just on the phone.
Okay. All right. You make a good point. Ziller.
I'm in the middle. I'm more, to tell you the truth, I agree with both Feisty and Crucible. But that's why, let me just say, that's why I made a video, and I also made an Instagram account so people can see exactly what I look like. I made a video on how I react every day on a daily basis. People people really didn't believe I had a handicap, so I made a video about my cerebral palsy, what it looked like, how I do. In the a couple of days I might do a picture how I do the puppets, because I do puppet shows with my right hand, so I might do that. That's why I did the Instagram. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, I like anime, so I did that. So that's the solution. That was my solution to exactly that point. If that, that's why. That's
Okay. Can I ask, why would people doubt that you had a disability?
well. There's, to tell you the truth, I don't. You know what? I really don't know. To tell you the truth, it's one of those things that I had to prove. I have I'll tell you, I have seizures all the time on Podbeam. I'll go like, and I'll come back. I'll go completely silent, and to tell you, to tell you the truth, I'll write it down in here. You can look at this up. A VNS implant. It's implanted in the chest, and it sends electrical volts up into the brain to take me out of a seizure. But it helps me from not having grand mal seizures and hard ones. But anyways, I was fine with just having a video to show. Literally, I had cerebral palsy in my right hand and brain damage in my left side of my brain, because I was born with it, and I literally had a 16% chance of even being born. So they didn't believe it, so I literally created a video on Instagram to show that I literally had cerebral palsy on my right hand. I couldn't believe I had to make a video of it. So whatever, I did it anyways, just to prove it.
Okay. Well, King Ziller, thank you very much for sharing. That was very personal, and I truly mean that. Sala says, in that situation, I will be such as a ghost because I am in bed now with the light off and my phone on my face, 1:51 a.m. All right, not a problem. I appreciate you staying up this late to come on the show. Thank you. All right, guys. I will. Does anyone have any last parting comments that they want to make? Once again, you guys have made my show a good show, and I thank you guys. I'll go around the room. Any closing remarks, Sava?
Yeah. And I'm in love with my plan. Yes. Charlotte and
I'll come back to Sava. Feisty one. Any last remarks?
As always, great show. Thank you. I love exchanging ideas and opinions. And it's so interesting. Sometimes I can have an opinion about something, and then listening to the others speak, it can sway me. It's like, oh, you're right. Like, that makes sense. So I just love the idea of exchanging opinions, because sometimes you can see things from a different perspective that you wouldn't otherwise think about. So thank you.
You're welcome. Crucible Man, any last words?
Yes, this was a very good show. I had a feeling it would be when I saw the title, and just it as a closing remark. I think to go circle all the way back to your original premise of the show, loneliness versus alone. Being alone is not always a choice, but it frequently can be. Being lonely is kind of something that's imposed upon us because it's an internal thing where we don't feel we have control. that's what reinforces the feelings of loneliness. Whereas if we've made a decision to be alone, we're in control of that. But I guess my final point would be, when it comes to loneliness, we all have a lot more remedies available to us. They may not be our first choices, they may not be our third choices, but they're available to us. So loneliness is a very insidious and pernicious state of mind that really does long-term damage. But I think knowing the difference between being alone and loneliness can give you some control over something that ordinarily you would feel is being imposed upon you, rather than something that you might actually have some control over. But I love listening to the opinions today. I love listening to people's personal stories. I love listening to their family dynamics and comparing it to mine. It really, really was a show of substance today. Solid. Kudos.
Thank you very much. Ziller, do you have any parting comments that you would like to leave?
I think Crucible said it all. I mean, to tell you the truth, I really don't get a chance to say much. I wish I could say more on my show about my disability, but I really don't like pulling that card out much on my show because a lot of trolls come in and, they target me a lot. So I don't like pulling I'm, handicapped, but they come in and, just bombard my show craziness. But yeah, he said it all. This was a complete, great, awesome show, and great job, Solid.
Thank you.
This was a fantastic show where there was nobody disturbing us, and we went through the line, and you also helped me out by literally you helped my situation with the epilepsy, so we worked together with that situation.
Okay, good.
So
Good. Well, you're welcome. Sava, do you have any parting remarks? I'm coming back to you, my friend.
Yes. So I consider each and every one of you my sibling. And I am not ashamed nor afraid nor feeling awkward to say that I love you guys. We may not all agree, but hey, you can't be in agreement with everybody all day, every day. That gets really boring. And there is connection in disagreement. And I thank you guys each and every time you disagree with me, because that's awesome. Thank you. Love you.
Well, thank you, Sava. And I know we have disagreed, but thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so everyone, again, thank you. If it weren't for you, I would not have a good show. And Juju, thank you for coming on and being a super fan as well as my administrator. I do want to tell you guys tomorrow. This is going to be a short week for me because this is another holiday week, and I'm just taking some me time. But tomorrow is going to be blind dates. Now, I know if for some of you may want to join, some of you guys may not, but I do have a question that I want to ask you guys. I was on a show last night that just had me laughing so hard. So if you guys want to join tomorrow about blind dates, yes or no, I'm going to throw in some other questions, whatever, and I think it'll be a really fun show. But last night I was on a show that just had me just laughing so hard. So with that note, guys, always speak your truth. Go where the wind takes you. I'm Solid Blue Sister. This is my turn to talk, and I hope you guys have a good day, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye. Everyone, thank you. Crucible Man. Wow, you're over 1,000 likes. 1,151. Thank you. Chrysalos Man, Sala, Feisty One, thank you. Juju, Frankie. And thank you again to Sava. My voice held out. And GP Man, Ziller. Thank you all. And Anjali. Thank you all. I'm just just going to hang out with the music a bit. And Sala, again, thank you so much for staying up with me. I appreciate it. I'm on Podbean shows for a while late at night. I can't make it past 12 midnight and I have to go to bed. So I appreciate it. Juju, are you making fun of my voice? Oh, you love my music. So do I. Last week, Feisty One said I have my Lauren Bacall voice going. Did you go to the pool today, Juju? I'm sorry, something must have happened. Oh, you're going later. Okay. Frankie, I cannot believe you are up to 9,333 likes. Thank you so much. I love you too. I know that is amazing. Okay, guys, again, thank you so much for coming and you enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.